All right, man. Peace. So it will be interesting to see if there is a trickle down effect from the Houston Rockets win over the Golden State Warriors this past weekend. The Rockets team surely seems to think that that victory will have reverberations well into the playoffs. We'll see. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
This is SportsCenter right now. I'm Will Reed. First Take will be back in just a minute. The new look Houston Rockets have won 2 out of their 3 games against the NBA leading Golden State Warriors. And Rockets forward Clint Capella recently said, quote, "We're confident because we know if we're doing what we're supposed to do, we're going to beat them." And then he said some stuff about defense and weak side switches, keeping a certain mentality on offense, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, quote, "We are better than them."
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of when I was a kid. And around this time, every basketball season, Patrick Ewing or Charles Oakley or John Starks would say the same thing about Chicago. They would play Chicago in a regular season game in New York in the early 90s, and they may win that game probably by 8 or 9 points, and they say, "We're going to beat Chicago this year." And Patrick Ewing will guarantee a championship.
The Rockets are now 17-0 in games that James Harden, Chris Paul, and Capella all play tonight. Houston hosts the Heat, who have won 16 of their last 22. That's the second best record in that span behind the Warriors.
Let me say this. The fact that the Rockets are 17-0 with Paul, Harden, and Capella all in the lineup together, that to me is a far greater stat than them even beating the Warriors 2 out of 3. Because I frankly don't think that it's going to have any effect on their postseason matchup should they meet in the postseason. Because playoff basketball is so different from regular season basketball, where you have teams that are coming in from long road trips or maybe concerned with other things. They don't have the time to properly game plan for one opponent. When you meet up in the playoffs, it's going to be a totally different dynamic.
Speaking of Golden State, they've bounced back well after losses this season, going 9-0, averaging 127 points per game. They host the Knicks on Tuesday. And in Boston, the Celtics managed just 95 points in yesterday's loss at home to Orlando. And in fact, since December 15th, Boston has the worst offensive efficiency in the league.
Let me say this about the Celtics, and I enjoy watching them play. I love Kyrie. He's one of my favorite players to watch. Probably my second favorite player in the NBA, other than Curry, to watch. They're going to have to think about making a major move. I've been campaigning for them to make the trade for Anthony Davis for a while now. They may have to pull the trigger, even if it costs them Jaylen Brown, because their offense is borderline putrid. They're going to have to pick it up on the offensive end when you get to the playoffs and you have teams that have a chance to game plan for you. And I believe I mentioned this in another video. If they get the wrong matchup in the playoffs, Boston could go out before the conference finals. I could see a Washington Wizards, even though that team is fractured right now. They're having locker room trouble, the Washington Wizards are. I could see them beating Boston in the playoffs in a second round matchup. It would not shock me.
Speaking of worst, this is about as bad as it gets for LeBron and the Cavs. They are 3-6 this month, getting outscored by 10 points per game. That's on pace to be the worst month ever for LeBron.
Well, it's hard to play great defense when you don't practice. Isaiah Thomas said they don't practice. So,
more First Take right now.
Well, thank you. Part 4 of Warriors-Cavs in the NBA Finals is looking shakier and shakier as the season progresses. Max, after what went down this weekend, who's in more trouble, Cavs or Warriors?
Before Max answers, I'm certainly going to say that the Cavs are the team that are in greater trouble. I'm on record as stating that I believe that the Warriors and the Cavs are going to meet in the finals this year, again for a 4th straight season. If they don't, would it shock me? No, it would not. I could see Rockets, Celtics. I could see Rockets, Cavs. I could see Warriors, Celtics. I could see Warriors, Cavs, all pretty equally. And of course, Rockets, Celtics. I mean, I could see any one of those matchups possibly in the finals. If I had to put money on it, I'm not a betting man, but if I had to put money on it, I would still say Golden State and Cleveland, because I believe that Cleveland will find their mojo, quote unquote, before the playoffs, and they'll get it going. And I just think that when you have LeBron on your team in the playoffs, especially where you have a chance to game plan for your opponent, I think that he's such a big X factor. but I would give them a 60% chance now to make the finals. The Cleveland Cavaliers, that is. In regards to Golden State, I would give them probably about a 75 to 80% chance.
The Warriors are in more trouble than the Cavs because the Warriors have a real contender in the Western Conference. The Boston Celtics are a good team. They ain't a super team. But let me tell you something about these Houston Rockets. And SportsCenter sent out an Instagram about this yesterday. With James Harden, Chris Paul, and Clint Capella in the lineup, they are 17-0. 17-0.
Well, I've already just stated that I found that stat to be very impressive myself. That is an extremely impressive stat. Even more impressive than them beating the Warriors 2 out of 3.
And they're not just beating teams, they're smoking teams. And now they've beaten the Warriors 2 out of 3. Clint Capella's a matchup nightmare for Pachulia. But really what we're talking about here is this James Harden, Chris Paul pairing. On paper, it is not obvious that it would be amazing. You know, but obviously you don't think that Chris Paul's going to make a team worse, but you don't know how much better.
Let me say this. Chris Paul and James Harden are definitively the best backcourt in the National Basketball Association right now. I would have to put them over Steph and Clay.
But oh my God, so much better. Not only is Chris Paul the captain of the defense, but Mike D'Antoni has figured out the way to use Chris Paul on that team, which is, you know, he goes to the Clippers, it's Lob City, but Chris Paul, before he got to the Clippers, you know, he was a score-first guard, and he can be that again on this team oftentimes. He and James Harden aren't always on the floor together. So basically, what the Rockets have is 48 minutes of somebody is going to kill you on the offensive side.
And their synergy is really starting to come together offensively. I've already stated this. I definitely have to acknowledge that I did not believe that they were going to be as compatible as they've proven to be. The Chris Paul, James Harden experiment is certainly working. And I think that the time that they invested in spending time with each other in the offseason or in the preseason, the time period prior to this season, is certainly paying off because they have a great relationship off the court. You can tell they actually like each other. You can tell their team actually likes each other. And it's showing on the basketball court. Now, will that result in them beating the Warriors? No, I don't think so, because I think that they're a Plan A team. I think that Mike D'Antoni is a Plan A coach. And when you get to the playoffs, teams that win championships, you have to have more than just a Plan A.
Between Harden and Chris Paul, and when they are on the floor together, my God. So the Warriors, while they seem to be firing on more or less all cylinders, and the Cavs are not, Stephen A., the Cavs do not have a team like the Houston Rockets to contend with. And I'm here to tell you, the Houston Rockets could actually beat the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs.
Well, just do me a favor and please remember you said that a week from now, a month from now, a couple of months from now, as opposed to trying to sit up there and just reorganize what you're saying.
And Kellerman will definitely try to do that because he always has to come out as if all of his reasoning is based in rationale and logic. When you have people who act as if that is always the foundation or the root of their thoughts and of their sentiments, it's very, very difficult for them to admit when their logic is flawed. So Stephen A. was correct to put that little reminder in his brain, because come a few months from now, 3 or 4 months from now, should Golden State beat the Rockets in 5, I hope that Kellerman will not have any type of excuses, because postseason basketball is different from regular season basketball. And Mike D'Antoni is a very good regular season coach.
Be consistent, and I'll appreciate that opinion even more in the weeks to come. However, I respectfully disagree with you, Max Kellerman. The Cleveland Cavaliers don't even look like a team right now. They just look like a bunch of parts that have been put together. There's no cohesion with them whatsoever. And by the way, let's stop just talking about Boston. Let's talk about Toronto, because DeMar DeRozan has developed a jump shot.
They do need to be mentioned. My thing with Toronto is Toronto, to me, is like the Eastern Conference version of the Rockets. They have to show me in the playoffs before I believe it. I need to see a serious run in the playoffs, and if and when they do lose in the playoffs, that they show some type of character and guts. They showed no character last season in the playoffs. The season before that, Kyle Lowry had to go decompress. They have a lot to prove to me, personally. just like the Rockets do when they get to the playoffs. I have to see the Rockets in adverse situations to see how Chris Paul and James Harden, how they respond, how they react. What is their reservoir? How deep can they go? Because championship teams, you have to dig deep.
Let's pay attention to that. And now they're shooting better, and Dwayne Casey is one of the best coaches in the entire NBA. This man's the real deal as a coach. Let's not ignore them. I still haven't given up hope on the Washington Wizards. I may be disgusted that Bradley Beal can't seem to score in the fourth quarter, but I still believe he's an all-star caliber player, and I got mad respect for him. I'm just concerned about his relationship with John Wall. They're having team meetings. Everybody's coming out talking about they ain't on the same page in the team meeting and accomplished what it was supposed to accomplish.
Yes, Bradley Beal and John Wall clearly do not like each other. It's very obvious that Bradley Beal needs to move on. They need to move him because they're not going to move John Wall. They view John Wall as the franchise player. Bradley Beal needs to go to a team where he has a pass-first point guard, where he does not feel like he has to kowtow or be submissive to his point guard. Bradley Beal plays a very old-school style of game. Yes, he can stretch the floor and make threes, but his game is very reminiscent of the shooting guards of the 90s. Many of these younger NBA fans, they talk about how Jordan did not face great shooting guards. The only thing they do is show their ignorance. Bradley Beal's game, to me, is slightly reminiscent of a Mitch Richmond. A little bit of a blend between him and Joe Dumars. And Bradley Beal clearly needs to have his own team. They're going to have to, if I'm the Washington Wizards front office, I'm trying to package him in a deal, because him and John Wall are never going to be able to build up their relationship. Bradley Beal clearly does not respect John Wall on that level. And there may be some reasons for that. Whenever you have a point guard who can't shoot but is always shooting, that may lead to some friction.
But I still believe in the Washington Wizards, which is why I keep getting on them, especially as dysfunctional as the Cleveland Cavaliers look, and particularly the liability that Isaiah Thomas, only because of his size, has, because you have to have him on the court. He can score on anybody, but you can also score on him because of his miniature size.
Yeah, but you guys already knew that. That's why it was laughable to me throughout the early part of the NBA season when you were trying to act as if Isaiah Thomas was congruent to Kyrie Irving. People like yourself and Max Kellerman and Shannon Sharp, Nick Wright, going on and on and on about Isaiah Thomas. This is a guy who was a sixth man prior to coming to the Celtics and being put into a system by the coaching genius Brad Stevens that allowed him to basically dominate the ball in a 1-4 offensive set, the top of the key, and utilize what he did best, penetrate or shoot. That's all he is. He's not Kyrie Irving. You can put Kyrie Irving anywhere in any offense and he can dominate. Isaiah Thomas is about 2 or 3 levels underneath Kyrie. That's why you cannot always just look at stats to deduce who the better player is.
But let me go to you out west and point out this, Max Kellerman, and I'll ask rhetorical questions before I get back to you. Klay Thompson gonna go 3 for 11 too often?
I agree, sir. I said the same thing. When you look at a team like the Rockets, yes, they were able to scrape by in a victory at home against Golden State in regular season in a game where Klay Thompson and Steph Curry combined for something like 9 for 31. Good luck with that happening over the course of 4 games out of 7 in the playoffs, where you have a Chris Paul score 33 points and a James Harden play pretty well in his second game back. Now, to give the Rockets to give them some credit, they were also missing Mr. Trevor Ariza. But point being is that Stephen A. makes a great point. The issue with Golden State, though, is that, and Klay Thompson and Steph will have these type of games, they just keep shooting, man. And I get it. You guys are great pure shooters, but every once in a while you've missed 3 or 4 straight 3-pointers. Pump fake your man and take a little 18-foot jumper. There's nothing wrong with that.
And really not score about 10 or 11 points? Is Klay Thompson going to get outscored by Luke Mbah-a-Moute? Really? You really want to count on that? You sure? Based on what we saw this weekend? Not to mention the fact that Steph Curry shot about like 6 for 20. Is that really going to happen? The only person that showed up with Kevin Durant Saturday night was Swaggy P, which was Nick Young. Nobody else showed up offensively, and Luke Mbah-a-Moute, outscored a couple of starters.
And let me say this, and even with Stephen A. making very relevant points in regards to the offensive output or the lack thereof by Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. The real issue with Golden State was their defense in the first quarter was horrific. They gave up over 40 points in the first quarter and only gave up a little over 100 points for the game. So their defense has to be better from the outset. Has to be much better from the outset when they're facing a team like Houston. I think that they came into the game kind of feeling like they were going to walk all over Houston. I think they figured that Houston would come out fast early and then they would beat them down the stretch, which they almost did anyway, even with Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson shooting as poorly as they did.
I'm supposed to rely on that? I mean, stop it. Just stop it.
They played three times. The Rockets have won twice.
Whoa. The home opener. The opener for the season, Max. We don't really count that first game of the season.
I agree. The first game of the season, it's hard to tell who's who. And remember that the Golden State Warriors lost the first game last season to the San Antonio Spurs, and they looked very disjointed in that game.
And last night.
And what about being 17-0? What about being 17-0?
Hold on. I'm answering you. I believe that the Houston Rockets are a legitimate threat. I believe that the Houston Rockets are big time. I believe that the Houston Rockets, I hope they make it to the conference finals because I love what I'm seeing from D'Antoni and I love CP3 and James Harden together. You're just coming to that party. I loved it from day one. But my biggest issue is
stop,
that Cleveland
stop right
is dysfunctional.
there. Stop.
What's up?
Stop. APB out. No. Wrong, because you are the guy, Stephen A. Smith, who when I was saying, hey, maybe the Rockets are the biggest threat to the Warriors in the West, you were saying, no, OKC, that's the preseason. We got tape.
Yes. That's not what I'm saying. You're
I'd still be very interested in seeing the OKC Thunder against the Houston Rockets. I think that would be a great series, and it would not shock me to see OKC beat the Houston Rockets in a series like that. I think that OKC's physicality is going to give not just the Rockets, but a lot of teams in the Western Conference playoffs a very difficult time. And if you're Golden State, I would be more worried about OKC than I'd be worried about the Rockets. Because once again, I think that the Rockets, their mental game is very, very low. And then they're not that physical a team. Basically, they're going to try to outdo Golden State on what Golden State does best. As long as Golden State comes out and defends the three-point line, they should beat the Rockets. Should. OKC is a whole other kettle of fish. That team is very physical, and if they can get on a hot streak in the playoffs with Melo and Paul George, they could be a serious problem. And then Steven Adams is the beast down low. Really big physical threat in the paint on both offense and defense. Steven Adams is.
You're misconstruing what I'm saying. I'm saying that you were talking about, I'm not saying that I said that Houston was more of a threat than OKC. That's on me. I know I said that.
Yeah, I did.
And to some degree, I'm not sleeping on OKC. But what I'm saying to you is you were so suspect about CP3 that you wanted. That's where I'm going with that.
I had questions whether those two guys could exist in the same backcourt.
Right, that's all I'm saying.
To this level. Now, I want to get back to the East. I want to get back to the East for a second.
Sure.
You're right to point out Toronto. DeMar DeRozan has a jump shot. He is now an elite player because of that jump shot. And Masai Ujiri deserves all the credit. When he was in Denver, they were excellent.
Let me say this about DeMar DeRozan. He's improved to the level right now where he's arguably a top 10 player in the NBA. I mean, I would probably have to do a list. But, I mean, of course, you have the top four guys, which are LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Kawhi, assuming that Kawhi can come back. And then, of course, you have the Westbrooks, the Hardens, the Kyrie Irvings, Anthony Davises. And then you have to start considering DeMar right in that level underneath that, right, with the DeMarcus Cousins and some of those type of players. The Jimmy Butlers, the Karl Anthony Townses. He's right there in that group.
You're right.
He leaves, they stink. He goes to Toronto, they're a perennial threat, but how much of a threat really to LeBron? And that goes for the great job Danny Ainge does in Boston, too. The fact of the matter is, for 7 consecutive seasons, we have seen LeBron James do it. So I have faith in Cleveland and LeBron. Faith not based in the absence of evidence, but based in 7 years of the same thing. Rough patches, slow starts, bad defense, etc. By the time the playoffs come around, LeBron James turns it on, and I believe that will happen again.
I agree with Kellerman on that. I think that LeBron has earned that over the last 4 years, his teams have struggled in the regular season, and they've been able to turn it on to a degree in the playoffs. So that's why I still have Cleveland as, in my view, the leading candidate to come out of the Eastern Conference until further notice. I'd like to see Boston beat them. I'd love to see Boston beat them because I think that they would give the Warriors or the Rockets, whoever comes out of the West, a far more compelling championship round matchup than Cleveland will. But that horse in LeBron James, he may be a little bit too much. I think he's a couple of years from falling off, and I just don't think that the Celtics have enough offense to beat them right now.
My point is, I see the Warriors.
But I hope that I'm wrong.
They're really good, as always. I've also seen them collapse in the postseason, but even when they were at full strength. But I see the Warriors. My point is nothing against the Warriors.
Hold on. When did you see them collapse? When did they collapse? When did they collapse?
Hold on. A 73-win team lost at home in 7 games in a series in which they had a 3-1 lead. You mean after Draymond got...
Now, once again, do you see what LeBron James' stupor fans do? They change the narrative. We all know what happened in that series. It was a series in more ways than one. It was a series of collapses. It really was a perfect storm, per se, to assist LeBron in getting that championship. And let me add on the magnificence of Kyrie Irving, which no one wanted to give credit to, or who no one wanted to give credit to, but now they understand. You know, sometimes people don't know what they have until it's gone.
Got suspended and then Bogut and Iguodala got hurt. I don't consider it a collapse. I don't consider it a collapse.
Whatever. Draymond Green don't get suspended. I mean, you know, and guys sometimes get hurt.
That's right. Remember that, Max Kellerman, when you make all those excuses for LeBron James. Right? Whatever. Oh, LeBron got to the finals too early. That's why he got swept by the Spurs in 07. Whatever. He's there. He lost. He got swept. Couldn't win one game. Whatever. Oh, well, you know, in 2011, LeBron and D-Wade were still working out the kinks. That's why they got embarrassed against Dallas. Whatever. Oh, in 2014, D-Wade, he wasn't the same player. He was breaking down physically. Whatever. You there. Oh, in 2015, Kyrie and Kevin Love got hurt. Whatever. Oh, in 2017, they brought Kevin Durant onto a 73-win team. Whatever.
Andrew Bogut wasn't the key to that team. My point is, it's not...
Andrew Bogut was the key to their rim defense. Everybody knew that. After Andrew Bogut got hurt, it was a free run to the basket.
It's nothing against the Warriors. And the Warriors are...
Thank you, sir.
...will still be favored.
All right,
but
guys.
The Rockets are live.
We're out of time. Nobody likes to be right on the show. Don't you worry. We're going to have more NBA talk tomorrow. Tune in, ESPN NBA.
But anyway, that is the conversation on the Rockets and the Cavaliers, as well as the Warriors. We'll see who comes out from each conference. Should be very, very interesting. Peace.